I reckon a good trick is maybe just plow your own world and don't worry too much about what is trendy, because that's going to come and go, and don't worry about it. A good trick is to ignore everybody else and just keep working on your own stuff. Keep writing. Keep going your own way.
Hello, and welcome to New Sounds Union, the podcast. Yes, this is the audio companion to your favourite stackable new music site, where we shine a light on some of the best new music and rising artists out there today. Every month, we'll chat to an underground artist about their creative process, as well as, the process of being a DIY artist in 2024. This month, we are joined by Mike Nisbet, excellent Scottish singer-songwriter, so we're looking forward to that. And one more bit of admin, joining me behind the scenes, when his microphone works, of course, is producer Chris, who's pulling all the strings and pressing all the buttons in the background. But first up, let's look at some of the music headlines. This week, we're looking at The Cure. And why should a podcast all about rising talent discuss a heritage act like The Cure, you might ask, even if they are one of the finest around? Well, it's because they had an absolutely stellar opening week for physical sales of their new record, Songs of a Lost World, which sold over 40,000 units on its way to the top of the charts. We know that physical sales are therefore working for some of the bigger artists in the music industry, but what about smaller artists? We'd love to hear from you. If you're an artist who has created physical records, whether that's, CDs, tapes perhaps, or even vinyl, and how this has kind of helped your marketing, helped your sales, helped you reach a new audience. We'll also be speaking to Mike about this later on and some of the other artists in the coming months. But if you do have any tales, good or bad, of physical sales, then you can email newsoundsunion@gmail.com. Hopefully we won't be hearing too much about the stacks of vinyl you've got in your living room. So every week on our New Sounds Union Substack, we share 5 tracks that have tickled our musical curiosity. And here on the podcast, we kind of want to shine a light on a couple that have really stood out. So the first one is Space Cadet by Soul Metro, who is a Manchester-based solo artist who essentially recorded one track every month throughout the last 12 months, and now he's released it as a record, which is brilliant, really kind of hooky indie, really strong melodies. And Space Cadet is the one that I've definitely been pressing repeat on quite a lot this week. So here it is. Next, we have Parcels of Meat, which is a fantastic band name. Definitely catches your attention. And their song, What Are We? So this is from their recently released EP. And it was quite a contrast to the first song of theirs I heard, which was kind of really energetic punk song. So I kind of, I went into the EP thinking it's going to be a bit more of that. But then this one came on and kind of blew me away. It's just super dreamy and beautiful, and kind of shows what a kind of eclectic range the Parcels of Meat guys have. So here we go. This is What Are We?
I'm reduced to begging. Won't you end my suffering? Kiss me, bite me, break me, open wide. Is this what it means to be made a fool of completely? Can you fix me, baby? What are we?
So hello, we are joined here with Mike Nisbet, a Scottish artist who has released 4 albums to date since 2011, including the most recent, 2023's Get Dead. Creating introspective and heartfelt anthems, he's been on tour across the UK in recent months, and he's already released 2 singles so far this year. So, let's go. So hello, Mike. Welcome to New Sounds Union, the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on our very first podcast. It does mean a lot. And yeah, I had the pleasure of seeing you play live just a matter of days ago, which was absolutely delightful. Yeah. Although now you've lost your voice, but that's pretty rock and roll, I suppose.
Or maybe careless, but yeah, that happens.
Yeah, I don't know how much you drank after that night, so I couldn't comment on that.
Not much, actually. Not much.
So, yeah, welcome to the podcast. So, yeah, we're going to explore a few avenues. So we'll start from the beginning and kind of explore your musical history. So what's your first memories of music, or kind of the first music that really tickled the brain?
I don't know. It didn't really have a very musical house, I suppose. Not really a musical home, but then it was things like being in school, being in high school and stuff, and then kind of forming around punk and pop punk and that kind of stuff. That's where it kind of all spawned from.
So this was kind of early noughties-ish era.
Yeah, like late 90s, early noughties. Things associated with like skateboarding and that kind of world. So things like Limp Bizkit, pretty prominent. Nu metal was pretty big. Yeah, things that kind of came with like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, things like that. That was where it came from, and then it branched out from there. So it wasn't really a thing until like maybe 12 or something, 11 or 12. It didn't really exist for me.
Well, I think that's quite an impressionistic time of your life anyway, because kind of beforehand you're just, music washes over you, but then you kind of start to be like, this is the pool of music I want to dive into, as it were. Are you still listening to the likes of Limp Bizkit today?
Not as much, definitely not as much, but I do still go back to it. It's like a, I don't know, guilty pleasure, I suppose. But some of that stuff really does slap, like, especially I think that first Linkin Park album and Chocolate Starfish, like those are kind of two very pivotal albums in my life, I'd say.
Yeah, I think they can be deemed as pretty important albums of the time as well. You know, I think there's always a bit of kind of degradation of the new metal scene, but yeah, I think they were big and really influential. So, you know,
it was definitely big for me, and you can hear it in the music. I'm sure.
Well, you know, Get Dead, which we just played from your latest record, Get Dead, is pretty heavy. So, you know, you can imagine some big distortion in that. So I suppose as then you got older, are there kind of other artists that you kind of picked up along the way that you think are kind of, part of your musical soul, kind of, you know, guys you listen to quite regularly nowadays, perhaps?
Because that made, I guess, like a group of friends and things start to think like, oh, we want to be in a band. Okay, well, I'll learn to play guitar, you learn to play drums, that kind of thing. And then through, I guess, like a community of people learning different stuff, we all kind of would find out, like, you know, eventually someone's going to hear Bob Dylan, and then someone's going to hear Neil Young, or so all that kind of folky stuff started coming in. And I think about then, once I figured I could do it on my own, like I could just play guitar and sing, I was like, okay, cool. This is my way out, I think.
So those kind of folk artists are the ones that you've kind of kept returning to and kind of dug more into that area, really.
Even now, I mean, it's cheesy, but or maybe it seems more like an obvious answer, but Dylan is so strong, especially like lyrically, and kind of always doing new stuff and this kind of reinvention type thing. It's always been a kind of pillar of like something to aim for. So, you know, I mean, you can fall short, but like that's the kind of you're shooting at that anyway, you know. That's the idea.
Yeah, I've heard his recent live show is perhaps he is falling a little short there, but
yeah, I think he's earned his stripes, that's for sure. I think he's doing okay.
Yeah, I'm not questioning that. Yeah. I mean, potentially a bit of a silly question, but I mean, Scotland's got such a kind of rich musical heritage. Is there, something in the essence of being Scottish and growing up there that you think has impacted your music, or perhaps not at all?
I think there's a definite like folk music kind of roots in the stuff, even if more recent things have been a bit more electronic or a bit more distorted or kind of heavier sounding. Just the roots of like the songwriting craft or the storytelling element of it is 100% comes from that kind of old, I guess like folk troubadour type thing. And songs being able to like stand on their own with just like a voice and a guitar or piano or something, and you could maybe get away with singing it in a pub and people singing along, and those kinds of old folky things are pretty, even now, like a really strong cultural thing in Scotland. So that's in there for sure. Like I can't escape that.
And I suppose fast forward to 2024, you're based in London. Is there a London scene that you feel part of, or do you think there's kind of, is London still kind of one of the best places to be as a kind of up and coming artist?
I don't know. I think that's I think it's a pretty hard question like a nebulous feeling question for a lot of people, because I love it here. It feels like home, but it's hard, I think, to feel like there's any kind of particular certain scene. Like I'm sure there are, but I don't feel like I'm really in one, other than kind of like my immediate kind of musical friends and stuff. But I think but I think maybe that's the feeling in most places, because so much stuff is like online, and that's kind of more where your scene or your world is, if that makes sense. But I still love it here. Yeah. I keep threatening to move away, but I don't think I will. I'm just going to stay.
It's such a, obviously, silly thing to say, it's such a huge space, but there is almost so much going on. And I think there's probably always something to kind of keep you in there as an artist, definitely. Well, let's move on a bit, cool. To actually talk about music and the creative process. So how does your songwriting kind of happen nowadays?
Disjointedly, I'd say. I guess it used to be, a kind of more romantic version of it, where I'd pick up a guitar and sit on the sofa and just kind of jam while watching TV or something, and just work on maybe a riff or an idea or something, and I kind of build it that way entirely.
Yeah.
And then it would become, then I'd go record it, and that would be that. But now it's much more of a kind of circular thing, I suppose, where I'll start recording something, then kind of take it out of the computer and play it for a while, maybe play it at some gigs, and then take it back and record it and chop it up and then take it out again. And it's, it's become a much more messy and entwined process with technology as well.
Because I think technology is, I suppose in terms of being able to record an instant idea in that second, it's amazing, yeah. But it does give you more options than ever before. So I suppose if your songwriting has kind of changed in that way, has the way over the last decade where you've been making these records, in terms of the recording process, has that massively changed? Or is it largely been kind of at-home recordings?
The very first stuff was in like studios, proper studios, with a producer, that kind of stuff. But as we know, that's quite expensive, and time isn't necessarily on your side. And then I think I just tried to do stuff at home just out of curiosity. I was like, oh, just try it out, make some demos, and then discovered that I quite enjoyed that part of it. And I'm sure, like many other home producers, you can just tweak and mess with things for months on end, and like, oh, put synthesizers on this. Yeah. I was like, oh, I could just do this myself. Once you get through the kind of, I guess, the initial barrier of, I have no idea what I'm doing. Why is that not recording? Once you get through that stuff, I found it pretty, it's like, oh, I'll just figure it out. Which is very freeing. And I think made it just, I don't know, opened up a kind of a way not to worry about it so much and just kind of just do it, I suppose. That wasn't a very good explanation, but
No, I think that was a great explanation. And I think, it definitely does take the pressure off, but obviously you're, well, in my case, often limited by not really knowing what you're doing with the computer, or, I still use Audacity, which, the audacity of it, I know. Lovely. And then finally, kind of, in this kind of creativity section. So I'd say, your music definitely has evolved in the last, over the course of those 4 records. I think, as you alluded to earlier, it started maybe more in that traditional singer-songwriter vein, and it still is very much that, but on the latest record, Get Dead, there was kind of more drum machines and kind of a fuller almost band sound. So I suppose, is that just something that's happened over time, and are you looking ahead to the next record? Are you kind of continuing on that path, or just seeing where the songs take you?
I think it's been fueled by just seeing where the songs kind of go, and with each release to try and create like a world that all the songs can kind of live together in, kind of lyrically and sonically and stuff like that. And I've been working on another album for, some parts of it are like about 5 years old. So it's been been quite a long one, but I feel like I'm close to finishing it. And it just took a really long time to find the kind of sonic universe that all of this stuff lived in. In the last couple of months, I had a nice kind of breakthrough. I was like, oh, there it is. It's over here, and it's in this place with
this is the thing. Yeah.
Instruments and this. I guess it's hard to explain, but it's usually just trying to figure that out. So.
Yeah, well, that's very exciting. That's an exclusive, I'd say. Well, let's hear some of the music you have previously recorded. So next up, we're going to play a snippet from Pure Pain, which is also from 2023's Get Dead record.
Pure pain reminds me of the inevitable decay. Wanna look in your eyes, feel pleasure and float away into pure pain.
I suppose being a kind of DIY artist in 2024, usually means that you're kind of your own label, sometimes your own manager. So yeah, I suppose we'll dig into a few of those points. But you've had a really kind of good year, it seems, in terms of kind of tour dates. You've been across the UK on kind of a couple of tours. How have you found that process of kind of finding venues, being the promoter or working with promoters, etc.?
Difficult because, but part of it is from my. In fact, I would say it's mostly from my side of things, being not a particularly, I guess, admin is not my forte, but I think I've finally found a way to kind of just get on with it, and because there's no way around it. I think I previously thought there was a way around, or maybe I could kind of, team up with someone who could help me do it, or, this seems like a constant realization I keep having, not just in music, but just kind of in life in general, is I'm like, oh, this would be great if maybe this could happen and this could happen, but I probably need to get a producer to make a record. And then eventually I'll get to a point where I go, no, I just need to do it myself. I need to get someone to design a poster. No, I just need to do it myself. I need someone to book shows. I better just do it myself. So it's not through wanting to do it myself. If anyone out there wants to help, give me a call. But for free. I'll give you a cut if I make any money, but but I think that's also the way of just, not just musicians, but just like making art, trying to make things happen nowadays. It's like, well, just go and do it. And also you'll probably make a mistake the first bunch of times, and just figuring it out. And, that's all part of it. And also realizing I've been doing this for quite a while. I still feel like I've just started, but I have been doing it for a while and thought, well, actually, I know how to do this. So, having a bit of self-confidence and just being like, okay. But the whole thing is stressful. I don't recommend it.
We started with difficult and we ended with stressful, but I think that probably does sum up the feelings of a lot of musicians.
You probably know, Tom Bright. He's a really amazing songwriter. We've talked about this a bunch of times. Like, we can't not do it. We tried to not do it and become miserable. So it's like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. So, okay, let's just figure out how to do it better. And yeah, just go for it. I don't know. I wish I had some good advice or something, but I just don't. It's like,
Well, I think that is good advice. And also the fact that, I think it's reassuring to hear a lot of the time for other musicians and artists that, there isn't no magic one solution. It is just like, okay, I've got to learn how to book a gig now, or learn how to make my artwork, or learn how to distribute my music. You've just kind of got to dive in. And as you say, mistakes will happen, but, part of the process. And then, I suppose when it comes to marketing your music and, putting bums on seats for your shows and getting streams, has that changed massively? Is there kind of, do you go into, I suppose with your recent single releases, perhaps, was there something you did there for the first time that you hadn't done previously?
Not worrying so much seemed to be the only thing I did differently. I wish I had better advice, or even some insight so that I could help myself when I release some more music. But it's so, I don't know, especially now with streaming and things, it just feels so nebulous. And I know there are ways I could do it better, but I didn't do any of those things before. I would say I've learned from a lot of mistakes over the last year. So, I guess that's how, but I don't know. It's changed so much since I started till now. So it's hard to I don't know. It all feels kind of up in the air.
Hard to compare. And stuff changes all the time. We were speaking in the intro to the podcast about physical records, whether vinyl or cassette, off the back of The Cure, as you might expect, selling lots of physical records on their way to number one. You've dabbled with some CDs, I believe, and some merchandise.
It's great.
How's that? How have you found that experience?
It's really true that a lot of people want to buy things. They want CDs, they want vinyl, posters, bags, everything. Like, I think, especially for kind of smaller artists and stuff like this, it's a way for people to support you too, because they know that your streaming stuff doesn't make a lot of money, but they know that t-shirts and merch is like really good for bands and things. So it's great. It's another one it's hard because you have to invest a fair bit of money, which I generally don't have. So that can be a barrier, I suppose. Like vinyl and stuff is quite expensive, but people want like real things around them. So I think it's good. I don't think it's going to go away.
That probably does lead us on to our final little section, which is kind of tips and tricks for other artists. So I suppose, what would you say in the modern day, 2024, off time of recording? Yeah, what's working for an artist in terms of how to get their name out there, I suppose?
If you know, I would love to know. That'd be great. I don't know. I think I would like it to be that people are playing really good live shows, which is what I'm trying to do, trying to be as good live as possible so that people will go to shows. And I've definitely had some people ask at like some kind of songwriter nights and stuff that played at that, like, oh, is it important to do gigs? It doesn't even matter if you can get so many thousand people online. I would say it's extremely important. But I don't know. I reckon a good trick is maybe just try and plow your own world and don't worry too much about what is trendy and stuff like that, because that's going to come and go, and don't worry about it. A good trick is to ignore everybody else and just keep working on your own stuff. Keep writing. Keep going your own way. Yeah.
No, that's very strong advice, I would say. On the flip side, is there anything you would kind of stay away from yourself when promoting your music?
That's a good question. I'm a late adopter to like being able to actually utilize social media properly. I'm trying to be better and taking some advice from some friends who have kind of successfully navigated this, I feel. I would say trying to, that sounds really cheesy, but like trying to be other things, or trying to morph yourself into something that you're not, just to try and get some attention or something like that. Because I reckon people can see through it pretty quickly. Like, I'm sure you guys know as well. Sometimes you can see people trying to latch onto something, like that's not working out. But then again, I don't know. I'd say don't listen to anybody. That's my best advice. Don't listen to anybody. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to anybody. I think that's genuinely good advice.
I'd have to agree with you. I think that is good advice. And yeah, it is always the balance of kind of authenticity, because I think, yeah, you're right. People kind of can see when someone isn't. But then that's not to say if you want to turn around and say, okay, no, I'm going to be a disco cowboy now and really go into that, then and pull it off, then why not? I think there is, and also a lot of the big acts, they're clearly they're putting on a show. They're kind of becoming the person on stage rather than just, you know, John Smith outside of it. Apart from the excellent singer-songwriter John Smith, who is also John Smith. Lovely. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Mike. That has been super interesting. I think just our final couple of things is if there's any other artists that perhaps we haven't heard of who you've been listening to a lot recently.
Yeah, I think I texted you this song because it was so good. It was Mumbletide is the band. It's like a duo, and the Rails is their new single. It absolutely just got me. It got me at the perfect time. I was like sitting on a train going up to Scotland last week sometime, and just bam. I can't. It just sometimes a song just gets to you, and you go, "That's a banger."
It is beautiful. We'll play in a second, but I suppose this does lead on to a sub question in terms of how you discover new music. Did it get you on a popular streaming platforms discover section, or did it get you in a different way?
I'd been following them on Instagram for, I think since, I can't remember. I must have been following them for a decent amount of time, and then it came up like, hey, here's a new single, have a listen. I generally will listen to people like that. If I've been following them, I'll go, okay, let's check it out. And then I'll just go searching and roaming and rambling through the archives of the internet, see what comes up.
Yeah, there's always something to explore. Lovely. All right. Well, let's hear a little bit of The Rails by Mumbletide. Lovely. So, Mike, if people want to listen to more of your music, where should we direct them?
Any streaming service, you can find me as Mike Nisbet or Mike Nisbet on Bandcamp. Literally Mike Nisbet in any of the forms, you'll find me. There is a jazz guitarist. That's not me, but otherwise you'll be able to find me.
Cool. All right. Well, it sounds like if they don't find you, they find a nice bit of jazz. Thank you very much, Mike. It's been a pleasure. Well, thank you so much for listening to episode 1 of New Sounds Union, the podcast. If you'd like to find out about more underground artists, you can find us at newsoundsunion.substack.com or on Instagram at newsoundsunion. This has been a Glow Bureau production. And join us next time for more music news and another interview.
Don't take no shit. Gotta be the same.